It's time to predict every single result of the 2024 AFL season from the first game of opening round all the way to the grand final. I'm not going to make this generic and basic, so don't take anything too seriously. I'm going to predict a few upsets and just be happy with that. Let's see how the table shapes out, because it could be completely different to how my actual higher predictions end up. Alright, obviously we can't go into every game with much detail because there are so many games to get through, but first game of the season, Sydney vs Melbourne at the SCG. It still doesn't feel right. I'm going to back the Swans to get this one down by 23 points to move top of the table to start the season. Brisbane versus Carlton, I'm going to back the Lions at the Gabba by 15 points. Gold Coast versus Richmond. I think Richmond are going to be pretty poor this year. I think Gold Coast will want to get off on the front foot to the right start. Damien Hardwick against his old team. I'm going to go the Suns by 6 goals. A big win for the Suns. Giants versus Collingwood. I'm going to go... You know what? Yeah, well, it's not generic. It's a draw. A draw in both of those teams' first game of the season. A draw for the Pies and the Giants. Carlton, Richmond, first game of round 2, whatever you want to call it. Carlton, Richmond, I'm going to go to the Blues in a big 10-goal win here. I really don't think the Tigers will be that good this year. So Richmond got 0-2 before some teams have even played a game. Collingwood, Sydney at the MCG. I'm going to go the Pies in this one. In a close one, as always, 7 points. Essendon versus Hawthorn. Two up-and-coming teams. This is a really, really tough one. I'm going to go with the Hawks by 14. Giants, Roos. Giants by 71. Big win for them. Cats, Saints. I'm going to go with the Cats at Cardinia Park by 11. Suns, Crows. I'm going to go with the Suns at home by 20. Gold Coast, top of the table, 2-0. Melbourne versus the Western Bulldogs. I'm going to go Melbourne at the MCG by 9. Port versus West Coast. Port by 66. A big win against them. And Freo, Brisbane at Optus. I think Brisbane will get it done by 3 goals. 18 points. So there you go. The top 3, Gold Coast, Brisbane, Giants. Imagine saying that 10 years ago. Alright, round 2, Saints, Collingwood at the G. I think the Collingwood at the G by 26 points, to be honest. Hate to say it for St Kilda fans. Adelaide versus Geelong. I'm going to go Adelaide at the Adelaide Oval by 5 goals. North versus Freo. Freo by 45. At Marvel, we've been better over the past few years. I think we'll get that one done. Hawthorn versus Melbourne. I'm actually going to go the Hawks by 7 to go 2-0. I just don't think the D's will be that good this year. Sydney versus Essendon. Sydney by 23. Bulldogs, Suns. At Mars. It writes for a Gold Coast upset for them to win their first 3 games of the season. Who would have thought? Richmond versus Port Adelaide. I'm going to go with the Power by 17. I'm winning 3 of the Tigers. West Coast versus Giants at Optus. Giants by 33, even though the Eagles did beat them in Perth last year. Brisbane versus Collingwood. I'm going to go with... Brisbane by 4. Really, really tough game to predict that one. North Melbourne versus Carlton. They try to get through these a bit quicker now. Freo at home. I think they'll pick up their second win of the season by 13. Essendon, St Kilda. I will go with... Okay, I'll go St Kilda. They need a win to start their season. Port Adelaide versus Melbourne. Port Adelaide by 30, I'm going to say. Bulldogs, Eagles. Bulldogs by 48. Richmond, Swans. I reckon it will be the Swans once again. Hawthorn versus Geelong. Easter Monday, I think this is. I'm going to go the Hawks at the G by 13. They're up to 5th. Adelaide, Melbourne. Adelaide Oval. Crom by 13. Brisbane, North at Norwood. I'm going to go... I mean, Brisbane smashed North at the Adelaide Hill last year. Now they're playing at Norwood. I think it's going to be more of the same. 64 points to the Lions. They're 4-0. Port versus Essendon. Port by 27. West Coast, Sydney. I sense a little West Coast upset at the Adelaide Hills. Why not? West Coast by 3 to get their first win of the season. Freo versus Carlton at the Adelaide Oval. The Blues got smashed at the Adelaide Oval and Gather Round last year. And Freo aren't bad at the Adelaide Oval, which makes me think a little upset. Freo by 4 in a thriller. Bulldogs versus Geelong. I'm going to go with the Dogs to win that one. Suns, Giants. I'll go the Giants by 21. Give Gold Coast their first loss of the season. Richmond, St Kilda. I'll go with St Kilda, I reckon, by 16. Richmond 0-5. Oh my god. Collingwood, Hawthorn, the Adelaide Oval. It's going to be a banger. Ginnivan back against the Pies. Ginnivan after the siren. Hawthorn by 3. Pies' second loss of the season. Look at that. Hawthorn third. What am I predicting? Melbourne versus Brisbane. I'm going to go. Melbourne get their, second win of the season by 20. They need to get some wins. They're not going to be that bad. Bulldogs versus Essendon. I'm going to go with the Bombers. Why not? Bombers by 5. Giants versus St Kilda. Giants, I reckon, by 21. Yeah, Giants by 21 at Manuka. They go top of the table. Carlton Adelaide at the Docklands. I'm going to go Carlton in a big win by 43. Gold Coast Hawthorn at Carrara. Gold Coast by 22. Port versus Freo. Port by 44. Geelong North. Geelong by... They won't be that good this year, but they'll smash them here. Geelong by 71. Richmond Tigers. Sorry, Eagles versus Tigers. No, upset again. West Coast second win of the season. They win by 4. St Kilda versus the Bulldogs. St Kilda by 13. Adelaide versus Essendon. Adelaide. Collingwood versus Port. I'm going to go with Collingwood. Carlton versus GWS. Carlton again. I reckon Giants with their first loss of the season. Brisbane versus Geelong. So we're still getting these... Each team's having like one bye round at the moment because of the opening round. So that's why some teams still have a game in hand when the round ends. So Brisbane, Geelong, I'm going to go Brisbane by 40 there. West Coast, Freo by 37. Sydney versus Gold Coast, I'm going to go with... I'll go the Swans by 31. And then North Hawthorn, I'm going to go at the Docklands. North first win of the season by 5. End of round 6, Port Adelaide are on top, Brisbane second, Giants third, Carlton fourth, Sydney fifth, then Freo, then Gold Coast, then Hawthorn. Collingwood ninth. What's happening? West Coast up into 15th, Richmond are 18th without a win. And I think Melbourne will win this. They'll win by 25. Essendon versus Collingwood. I'll go with... The Pies have to start winning a lot of games at some point. They'll win that one big. See, look, from 1st to 9th, there's a 1-win gap. It's very close. The ladder isn't really taking shape yet. Giants versus Brisbane. Giants. Port versus Saints. Port will go in Hobart. Why not? The Roos. Geelong versus Carlton at the G. I'll go Carlton. Freo Bulldogs at home. You know what? The Dockers 5-2. We do have a reasonably easy start to start the season. I think I said that last year too, but I think these are all winnable games that we're winning. Gold Coast versus West Coast. Gold Coast by 57. They're up into 5th. Wow, what a start for them. They don't really have a very hard fixture to start the season. Hawthorn versus Sydney. You know what? Hawks at the G. Why not? Adelaide versus Port Adelaide. I'm going to go with Adelaide by 1. That's Friday night, I think that game is. Carlton versus Collingwood. Oh my god. I think it will be... It's the Blues. It looks like the Blues here at the moment, according to the table. Sydney versus GWS. Sydney. Saints by 10 goals. They will thump the Roos. Melbourne versus Geelong. I think Melbourne will win this game. West Coast Essendon. Essendon by 30, I'd say. They are a better team, realistically. Richmond Freo. I think Freo are better than Richmond, and I think we'll win at the G. I'll actually bet this game. Freo to win that game. Bulldogs versus Hawthorn. Bulldogs, right? At the Docklands? Yeah. I'll go to Bulldogs. Brisbane to beat the Suns at the Gabba by 9. And a bit of a narrow victory. How are Freo top 4? I haven't done that on purpose. Look, there might be a bit of bias, but I didn't put Freo top 4. The results did. How's that happened then? Carlton versus Melbourne. Carlton. Geelong Port at Cardinia Park. Geelong. Freo Sydney. I'll go Sydney. They've been actually quite good at Optus as of late. Hawthorn versus St Kilda at York Park. I'm actually going to go with the Hawks. Essendon versus Giants. Essendon, I reckon, at the Docklands. Yeah, go on. Go on the Bombers. Richmond Bulldog. Richmond at the G, I'm finally going to give them a win by 12 points. They finally need to get a win the Tigers, surely. There's a bit of a wooden spoon race heading up here, bloody hell. Gold Coast versus North. Gold Coast. Gold Coast to 5th. What's happening? Collingwood West Coast at the Docklands. It doesn't really matter. It's going to be Collingwood by 103. There you go. How are Collingwood only 8th? What's happening? Adelaide versus Brisbane. I'm actually going... You know what? Adelaide. Why not? Little upset. Gold Coast versus the Cats. I think the Cats can go to the Gold Coast and get a win. The Suns can't win every single game, surely. Swans versus Blues. Swans. Pies versus Crows. Pies. Giants versus Bulldogs. Giants. Big win. Saints Dockers. I think last time we played St Kilda on a Saturday night at Marvel, we did win. But we played them at Marvel last year in round 1 and we lost. And the year before that, we lost their Optus to them. It's very 50-50 whenever we play St Kilda, and it could be a close game. I'm going to go the Saints by 3. I'm not going to be biased. Brisbane versus Richmond. Brisbane by 33. Yeah, I'll thump Richmond. Essendon versus North. I think, you know what, North can go and win that. North ain't going to lose every game. Port versus Hawthorn. Port by 35. Port go top of the table. My early ladder predictions videos go look so silly after the look at this ladder. And West Coast Melbourne, yeah, Melbourne should win that by 33, move up into 10th. Okay, we're 10 rounds down. Port, Carlton, Sydney, Brisbane, Collingwood, GWS, Gold Coast, and Fremantle's the top 8. Just on the bubble there, Hawthorn, Melbourne, St Kilda, Adelaide. Let's go to round 11. Bulldogs, Swans. You know what? Bulldogs at Marvel, why not? I mean, the Pies should win this realistically. 24 points, why not? They go top of the table. What a close ladder this is. They were 11th a few minutes ago. North versus Port Adelaide. North in Hobart. I'm going to give North some wins here. North can get back to their old Hobart form, you never know. Surely Clarko can start working some wonders. They won't go a bloody 3-win season again, surely. Geelong versus Giants. At Kardinia Park, the Giants always seem to beat them there, so I'm going to go the Giants again by 14. Richmond versus Essendon. Essendon, I reckon, in this form. Yeah, 19 points Essendon. Hawthorn versus Brisbane. At the Docklands, it's an interest. I'll go Brisbane by 12. Melbourne versus St Kilda. At the G, Melbourne by 20 there into the 8. Adelaide versus West Coast. I'm going to go Adelaide by 45. They're up into 9th. 3 or out of finals down to 10th. Port Adelaide versus Carlton. Port. Collingwood Bulldogs. At the Docklands, why not? A little upset. Bulldogs. West Coast St Kilda. You know what? West Coast almost beat the Saints in Perth last year. And I know every Saints fan watching this video is going to get massively pissed at me doing this. But upsets have to happen.
You can sub it.
Fuck me! Dead!
No.
Geelong versus Richmond. Geelong at Kardinia Park by 14, I reckon. Melbourne Freo at Traeger Park. We've never played here, and it has all the writings of Melbourne by like 78. We always just have one of those games at a regional ground every few years where we just get obliterated. Whenever we go to the Northern Territory, which in fairness hasn't been for a while, we just get done. Melbourne by 78. Gold Coast versus Essendon. I'm going to go with the Suns at Carrara. Adelaide versus Richmond. Adelaide. Bulldogs versus Brisbane. Yeah, Brisbane by 19. I was trying to find a way for an upset, but couldn't find it. Hawthorn versus Giants. At York Park, give me the Hawk. West Coast North. I'm going to go with the Roos away by 18. Saints versus Gold Coast. St Kilda by 26. Swans versus Cats. Swans by 52. Big win at the FCG for them. Essendon Blues. I'm going to go the Bombers in a little bit of an upset here by 5 points. Close loss there for Carlton to the Bombers in a bit of a rivalry. Collingwood versus Melbourne. Collingwood by 19. They're up into 2nd. Brisbane versus St Kilda. Brisbane by 29. Bulldogs Freo. I'm going to go with the Bulldogs. We always lose to the Dogs at Marvel, except for about 2 years ago. That was the one exception ever. Richmond versus Hawthorn. Oh, Richmond are due for a win. They can't go 1-12. I'm not sure why I'm making Richmond this bad. I'm sorry, Richmond fans, but you've won your premierships. Actually, I'm not sorry. Adelaide versus Sydney. Adelaide. North versus Collingwood. Collingwood. Giants Port. Giants. Carlton Geelong. I'm going to go with Carlton. Port versus Brisbane. I'll go with Port at home. Giants Swans. Let's rattle through a few of these. Melbourne with a big win there. Essendon with a big win at home. I think we'd beat Gold Coast at home. Brisbane would beat Melbourne at home quite convincingly. Geelong, Essendon, Geelong. I know it's at the G. I'll go Geelong. Gold Coast versus Collingwood. I'm gonna go with the Pies. I shall go a bit of a bigger win. The Pies need to start getting on a massive winning streak here with a lot of big wins. North versus the Bulldogs. I'm going to go with the Bulldogs. Richmond, Carlton. You know, Richmond, 2 wins in a row. Why not? I need to win something. St Kilda versus Port. Saints? Yeah, Saints at home. Why not? Upset. Swans, Freo. Swans by 54. We'll get a few batterings in this season. The thing is, we're 7 and 8. Like, we're 1 win out of 7th. But, you know, our percentage is just shit. We're down in 13th. Adelaide versus the Giants at home. Crom. West Coast, Hawthorn. Actually, you know what? West Coast can win that. Why not? Bit of a wooden spoon race heating up. At the moment, after 16 rounds, Brisbane, Collingwood, Giants, Port, Sydney, Carlton, Adelaide, Melbourne. Brisbane versus Adelaide, I'm going to go with the Lions. Collingwood, Bombers, Collingwood. Geelong, Hawthorn. I'll go Geelong. Giants, you know, Giants at home can beat the Blues. Melbourne versus West Coast, I'm going to go with Melbourne by a lot, 73 points. North versus Gold Coast, I'd say. We'll go 25 points. St Kilda versus Sydney, St Kilda, Port to beat the Bulldogs convincingly there. We beat Richmond at home. We need to have 1 big win. 50 points, why not? I'm just bullying Richmond, bloody hell. Look, it's the first year with a new coach. Like, this isn't unexpected. I don't think you'll be this bad. I think this is a bit inaccurate, but you know, you'll lose quite a few games. Collingwood versus Geelong. I just feel a Geelong upset. But Collingwood's gonna keep winning, aren't they? Yeah, Collingwood for 20. Gold Coast, no, I'll give Port that win. Hawthorn, Freo at York Park. We've been quite good at York Park as of recent. I'll go Freo by 25 away from home. I don't think we'll be so bad we just lose a massive amount of games. I think people think that. We won't be bad this year. We've lost Schultz, but we've got viable replacements. Like, we won't be that bad, okay? Put my word on it. Melbourne versus Essendon. I'm going to go Melbourne by 18. Richmond, Giants by 24. Sydney, Carlton, Adelaide, Brisbane by 111, because why not? Or, you know what, Sydney away from home. Brisbane are finally going to lose at the Gabba. Sydney to beat the Lions at the Gabba. Big shot. Carlton to beat the Roos. Oh, Crows to come away and beat the Bombers, I reckon. Yeah, why not? Geelong at home to the Bulldogs. I'll go the Cats. Then Giants, Suns. I'll go with the Giants. Then Hawthorn, Collingwood. I'll go Collingwood, who go back on top of the table. Saints will get a big win at home against the Eagles. They'll move to 9th. They'll be hoping Melbourne lose. Who do they play? Port beat Richmond. Freo versus Melbourne. Melbourne. There's now a 2-win gap in between 8th and 9th. That makes it very tough for teams like St Kilda, Freo, Geelong, Gold Coast, Hawthorn. Carlton versus Port. I'll go Carlton at home. Collingwood. Oh, you know what? Gold Coast at Carrara, get another Q Clash win. Giants away at the G. In Hobart, North get another win. They're 6th of the season. St Kilda versus Essendon. I'll go with the Saints. Sydney versus Bulldogs. I'll go Sydney by 31. Adelaide by 42 at home to the Hawks, who have dropped off a little bit in the second half of the season. We'll beat the Eagles big by 75. We're up into 10th. All right. So we've got 21, 22, 23. We've got 4 rounds left. Melbourne have 11 wins in 8th. St Kilda and Freo have 10 wins in 9th and 10th. Okay. So there's a bit of a race there for finals, that last final spot. I think the top 7 is pretty much locked. I think that top 7 probably will happen from here. Collingwood versus Carlton. I reckon Collingwood. Essendon, Freo at the G. We haven't played Essendon at the G since 1997, by the way. I think we'll beat them there. I think it will be a bit similar to our round 24 game against Hawthorn last year. Then we'll get a convincing win in front of, 10,000 people. Freo by 35. Geelong versus Adelaide. Geelong. Giants versus Hawthorn. Giants. Yeah, Giants. North versus Richmond. You know what? No, I'm sorry. Richmond have to win. I'm sorry. St Kilda versus Brisbane. You know what? Saints are at home, but there needs to be a few upsets here. Bulldogs versus Melbourne at the Docklands. I'm going to go with the Western Bulldogs. And that actually opens the finals race. I wasn't even looking at that. Melbourne, St Kilda at Freo, all on 11 wins, heading into the last 3 rounds. Port versus Sydney. Port. West Coast versus Gold Coast. West Coast get themselves another win. Richmond back on the bottom. Brisbane versus Giants. Brisbane need a win. They get it. Carlton versus Hawthorn. Hawthorn away at the G. Pinch and upset. Essendon versus Gold Coast. I'm going to go with the Suns away from home. Melbourne versus Port Adelaide. Oh, I think Melbourne. At the G, Melbourne. North versus West Coast. North and Hobart. Richmond versus St Kilda at the Docklands, probably St Kilda by 18. And that percentage, it's just percentage separating Adelaide and St Kilda there. Sydney versus Collingwood. Sydney get an upset by 1 point. They beat the Pies at home. Adelaide versus the Western Bulldogs, they beat them convincingly by 28 points. They extend their gap of St Kilda. And then Freo Geelong at home, I think the Dockers win that by 19. 2 more rounds to go. That final spot is being raced by Melbourne Carlton. How have Carlton dropped to 8? What have I done to Carlton? Oh my word. What a finals race we have here. Collingwood versus Brisbane at the G. Collingwood. That pretty much solidifies them the minor premiership again. Essendon versus Sydney. Oh, Essendon at home. Gold Coast versus Melbourne. Gold Coast at home. Giants Freo at the Showgrounds. Giants, I have to say. Hawthorn versus Richmond. Hawthorn to win that. Saints, Giants at the Saints, Cats at the Docklands. Saints by 6. Saints are into 7. Bulldogs, Roos. Oh, Bulldogs by 38. They'll get a big win there. Showdown, Port, Crom. I think Port by 15. Then Eagles, Blues. Blues by 33. They're back into the 8. So heading into the final round, that final spot is being chased by Carlton, Adelaide, St Kilda, Melbourne and Freo. Melbourne are in 9th, but they've got a better percentage than everyone else chasing that spot. Wow, what a race we have here. So theoretically, Sydney could either drop out of finals or make top 4 in this final round. What on earth? Brisbane, Essendon. Brisbane will win that by 41. Carlton, St Kilda. I think Carlton by 5 in a classic. Saints still in the 8. Cats, Eagles. Cats by 52 at GMHBA. In fact, no, it won't be. It'll actually be like a 129. Like it's GMHBA, Cats, Eagles. You do know what we're talking about here. Hawthorn versus North at York Park. Hawthorn by 27. Melbourne, Collingwood. Collingwood still want that minor premiership, and GWS could steal it off them. Actually, maybe they won't. No, they've won the minor premiership no matter what. Even the Giants with need to win by like 200. So I think they might take the foot off the gas a little bit, and I think Melbourne might win that. Melbourne are into the 8. St Kilda drop out. Richmond versus Gold Coast. I think at the G, Richmond will end the season well. They'll move into 17th, which will give West Coast another wooden spoon. Sydney versus Adelaide at the SCG. Sydney by 20. They move to 5th. Bulldogs versus Giants at Mars. I'm going to go to Giants by 18. Freo Port at home. Oh, I think Port would win it. Yeah, Port by 15, which would mean Freo finish 10th. Damn it. So there's my final lager. Collingwood win the minor premiership. GWS in 2nd. Brisbane 3rd. Port Adelaide 4th. The rest of the 8 is Sydney in 5th. Carlton in 6th. Melbourne in 7th. And Adelaide in 8th. The rest of the table is St Kilda just missing out in 9th. Freo 10th. Gold Coast 11th. Hawthorn 12th. Geelong 13th. Bulldogs 14th. Essendon 15th. North 16th. Richmond 17th. And West Coast 18th. Qualifying final 1 at the MCG between Collingwood and Port Adelaide. I think I backed the Pies to go to a prelim there. Qualifying final 2 at Giant Stadium. GWS and Brisbane. I think Brisbane's finals experience will come in clutch there. I think the Lions would win that. Sydney versus Adelaide at the SCG. Sydney, look, I think Sydney are going to have a really good year, and I think Sydney will get that done. They'll move into a semi-final to take on Port Adelaide away. Carlton, Melbourne at the MCG, repeat of last year's semi-final. I think the Blues will be the far better side. I think the Blues will smash them. Carlton to win that. Semi-final 1, Port Adelaide versus Sydney at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide out in straight sets, Ken Hinkley sacked. Sydney into a prelim. Semi-final 2, Giants, Blues at Giant Stadium. Blues away from home. 2 upset semi-final wins. Prelim final 1, Carlton, Collingwood, MCG. Collingwood take the foot off the gas. Carlton snatch it after the siren. I'm just making up storylines for the sake of it now. Prelim final 2, Brisbane, Sydney at the Gabba. Brisbane win it. Grand final, Carlton versus Brisbane. Brisbane finally win their flag. Brisbane, the 2024 AFL Premiers. Don't take this video too deep. It's subjective. You know, don't start personally attacking me. It's all just a bit of fun. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you're new, or if I didn't offend your club in this video. And I'll see you all next time. Cheers.